Once an MMA fighter finds fame and distinction, it's understandable to assume that fortune will follow him, and in most cases, that's true also. However, it's far from a hard and fast rule. In today's video, you'll be seeing some top MMA fighters who made millions of dollars but failed to hold on to the hard-fought fruits of their labor. So, let's get started. Diego Sanchez. Sanchez is the former Ultimate Fighter Season 1 winner and one of the longest ever serving fighters in MMA. He's amassed over $3 million in disclosed earnings in the promotion alone over the years. This mixed martial artist had a brilliant success record in the UFC and was one of the best fighters in the octagon of his time. However, when he was at the height of his fame and powers, Sanchez got in with the wrong crowd. Every now and then, he was seen throwing expensive parties and was burning through his wealth at an alarming rate. When once asked about his decline, Sanchez replied, "Go big or go home. I used to say that. I was addicted to that. The lifestyle, the fame, the girls, the parties." Other than this, Sanchez trusted the wrong person with his finances and, eventually, the guy ended up breaking Sanchez's bank and wiping him out. Mark Kerr. In his prime, Mark Kerr was a nightmare for his opponents, who won 2 UFC tournaments. Cashing in on his fame, he signed with Pride Organization, where he approximately earned $1.8 million. He lived a luxurious lifestyle just like a rock star. He had an expensive home in Santa Monica, to go with another in Phoenix, and 4 cars. Gradually, Kerr developed a cocaine habit and abused alcohol. An infamous warts-and-all documentary about Kerr called The Smashing Machine showed alarming behind-the-scenes footage of Kerr in 2003. This documentary revealed the shocking life and career of Kerr going off the rails due to steroid and painkiller abuse. He also had a problematic relationship with his wife. From being undefeated in his first 13 fights, Kerr would lose 6 of his next 7 fights, and since then, Kerr has continued battling with drug abuse and poverty. He tried several times to return to fighting, but wasn't successful. Kerr is now retired and has worked as a car salesman. James Toney. Here's Toney, another MMA fighter who became famous thanks to his boxing career. He won 2 belts in multiple weight classes. However, in 2009, Toney was at the tail end of his career and struggling to find opponents in the octagon. He was in serious financial trouble at the time. Toney then decided to personally attend various MMA events and eventually convinced Dana White to sign him again. In the summer of 2010, James Toney faced Randy Couture in the octagon as his best chance to dig himself out of that hole. Going into the fight, Toney was considered a heavy underdog. As many predicted, Couture took Toney down using his wrestling tricks and submitted him in a first-round submission loss. Conor McGregor. At one point in his MMA career, Conor McGregor was famously picking up welfare checks and was doing wonders. So, you'd think he'd have been eager to never have to experience those hard times again after finding stardom and popularity in the promotion. However, McGregor saw things quite differently. Rather than worrying about being financially unstable, McGregor was of the view that being financially secure would make him less hungry and motivated in his fighting career. So to ensure that didn't happen, Notorious came up with a daring plan. When you get your money, spend every penny, blow it all, so you're actually going broke come your next fight, so you're just as hungry as you were before the first one, McGregor said. So, I'm in the process of blowing every penny of that. Every fucking penny of it. However, it must be noted that McGregor was not in a financial hole for too long, as he did continue winning. After his wealth raised again to astronomical amounts, he confessed that his unhealthy obsession with spending money had faded. Chris Weidman. Back in 2013, when he knocked out the longtime reigning middleweight champion Anderson Silva, Weidman was on top of the world and shocked the world. He achieved great heights of fame and was considered one of the best fighters in MMA at that time. But leading up to that fight, his life was in turmoil. 9 months earlier, Weidman's house was ravaged by Hurricane Sandy, forcing him and his family to live in his parents' home. He was essentially homeless and was completely bankrupt. His life was essentially in chaos. Weidman's story is like out of a Hollywood movie. It's Rocky Balboa. It's insane. Later, he further sunk into debt and also suffered a broken shoulder in the lead up to the biggest fight of his life. But thankfully, after that fight with Silva, his life changed completely, and Weidman was able to buy a new home and pay off his debts. Mark Coleman. Here's Coleman, UFC's Hall of Famer and two-time tournament winner. He's also UFC's first ever heavyweight champion and one of the all-time greats in the arena. Unfortunately, after retiring, Coleman found himself in dire financial straits. He even attempted to auction off the 5-foot trophy and novelty check he won as Pride's 2000 Grand Prix winner on eBay for $24,500. In order to cover the costs of a second hip replacement, Coleman was desperately seeking money because his health insurance was about to end. In this distressing situation, his friend and former UFC fighter Wes Sims came forward and appealed to the public to raise funds for Coleman. He explained that the Hammer was unemployed with no proper source of income other than occasional guest appearances and autograph signings. A GoFundMe account was created for Coleman, looking for $20,000 to help the former MMA champ. His fans responded generously by raising over $50,000, leaving the star overwhelmed and thankful. Ken Shamrock. In the early days of MMA, Shamrock headlined multiple events and also won the Super Fight Championship. He was one of the biggest stars in UFC and WWE and also competed in Pride. In 2002, Shamrock returned to UFC and continued his legacy, winning many fights, including a trilogy against Tito Ortiz. 4 years later, he was ultimately released after a disappointing 1-4 run. Given his status and ranking during the height of his career, everyone assumed that Shamrock would have done well for himself financially. However, that wasn't the case. Years later, after the Hall of Famer attempted to sue the UFC for not letting him compete the final fight of his contract and also accusing them of underpaying the fighters, Dana White revealed that Shamrock was completely broken and financially unstable when he returned to the promotion. Shamrock lost the case against Dana and was left facing $175,000 in legal fees from the court case. However, Dana White eventually waved that off after burying the hatchet with the former star 2 years later. Tyron Woodley. During his 3-year run as the UFC's welterweight champion, Woodley lived a good life, earning almost $500,000 per fight, in addition to a cut of the pay-per-view revenue. That saw his disclosed career earnings around a whopping $4 million, an unimaginable amount for someone who grew up in extreme poverty. But Woodley once admitted that he blew through that money as fast as he was making it. He bought 7 cars, 2 houses, and all these luxurious tours. He was often seen going to VIP clubs and all this shit every now and then. The former star didn't know how to look after his finances and eventually paid the price for it. And that's all for today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, make sure you do it now. And to receive notifications of our latest videos, press that notification icon too. Till our next video, stay safe and healthy.